Let me introduce myself. My name's Jaswant Narwal. I'm the Chief Crown Prosecutor for CPS London North. That's the day job. And because I cover the Old Bailey as one of my courts in my region, I'm also the chair of the Treasury Counsel Committee. And that's why I'm leading on the meeting today. And essentially, that means I've got the overall responsibility for the recruitment process here for Treasury Counsel, but I'm very ably assisted amongst others by not just the CPS National Court Business Unit, and you can see Michael there, who's there, also by First Senior Treasury Counsel, Ollie Glasgow, and also Lisa Ramsran, who's also on screen, who's my deputy in CPS London North and has oversight of the homicide team, which is the Pan-London homicide team. And you'll hear from both Ollie and from Lisa a little bit later on. Just a couple of domestics, first of all, if I may. This meeting is being recorded. You'll have seen the red dot on the screen there. And we're going to post this on the CPS website for reference and also for anybody else who couldn't attend this evening. Cameras and mics are all turned off for you, other than those of us who are speaking. But can I ask that those of you who are here, you'll know people who wanted to attend and couldn't attend. And there's many advocates who did register. Can you please kind of pass on and signpost people to our website where this recording will be, and just share what you can learn this evening with them, because it's really important that as many people as possible who are interested in becoming Treasury Counsel are aware of the guidelines as well. So we've got about an hour or so, and if you've got any questions in the meantime throughout our presentations and talks, can you please post them on the chat? You should have access to that. We'll monitor that, and we've built some time in at the end to answer those questions. But we'll also send you, after this event, updated FAQs, updated because there'll be some questions, no doubt, from today. And we'll also send the application forms and guidance after the event, together with any invitations to apply where that is relevant. So you're going to hear next from the director. Really pleased that the director has been able to join us today. You're also going to hear from Ollie Glasgow, very experienced current First Senior Treasury Counsel, who's going to focus on the role, the application process and the interview timetable, and then Lisa from CPS London North, who covers the Old Bailey homicide team, will also talk about the team there and what we do. As you know, all Treasury Counsel appointments are made by the Attorney General through fair and open competition, and it's in consultation with the Director of Public Prosecutions. And that's why I'm really pleased that our new director, who was appointed and began at the beginning of November, has been able to join us today to say a few words in support of the importance of being Treasury Counsel and the importance of this process. So without further ado, Stephen, I'm going to hand over to you, and welcome to the meeting.
Thanks very much, Jazzy. And yes, I'm delighted to add my own welcome to all of you. Thank you very much indeed for the interest that you have shown in applying to be Treasury Counsel. Although some of you may know I've been in private practice until a couple of weeks ago for the last 20 years, I actually began my career in the Department of the Director of Public Prosecutions, which dealt with the most serious and complex casework in the country. There were just 60 of us lawyers, and we worked very closely with Treasury Counsel. At that time, and then in the CPS, and then later on in the Attorney General's office, I had a lot to do with Treasury Counsel. So I think the role is hugely important. You probably don't need me to tell you that Treasury Counsel deal with the most high-profile, serious, complex cases in the Crown Prosecution Service. It is in many ways the pinnacle of a prosecuting counsel's career to join the room, as I still see it's still called the room, as it was all those years ago when I was last in government service. And it's called them in for a number of reasons, but one of them is actually, I think the sort of, and Ollie, I'm sure you will say something about this, but the collegiality, the working together, supporting each other is a key part of what Treasury Counsel do. Now, I learned something today because I was given some notes for what I might say to you. And I didn't know this, but I can tell you this, that as long ago as 1834, it was recognised that there was a need for full-time counsel undertaking the government's prosecution work. And I say the government because the office of DPP was only established in 1879. So I guess it was whatever was in existence at that time. It must have been something official. And they realised they needed full-time public prosecutors. But it wasn't until 1879 that two such counsel were actually appointed. And that was when the Prosecution of Offences Act came into being. So I'm sure it's not a coincidence that alongside the creation of the office of DPP, the role of Treasury Counsel was devised at that point. And about 10 or 11 years later, the Attorney General recommended that the number of Treasury Counsel was increased. I'm not told whether that recommendation was accepted, but I assume it was. And so it happened. But it's still, it's still not it's not a big body of people. There's generally around 20 people who are Treasury Counsel. At the moment, there are 16, of which there are 7 who are seniors and 9 who are juniors. Jazzy has already said that appointments are made through fair and open competition, and that's what we're about to commence. But on my recommendation as DPP, but Jazzy leads the process through her role as Chief Crown Prosecutor for London North. It's really important, given the importance of the role that you undertake, that we do attract the brightest and the best, regardless of background, obviously, but also regardless of where you might be based. And although a lot of the work is in London, increasingly so, Treasury Counsel are involved in cases across the country, because, of course, serious and complex casework can arise in all sorts of places other than London. And that's one of the reasons why we're keen to attract people from outside London to these positions. Now, at the moment, we have 7 monitorees. They're coming towards the end of their term. We always have fixed term appointments. And they're coming to the end of their 3-year monitoring period, following which there will be assessment for appointment into the Treasury Counsel ranks. And so this process is looking to replace those people. Alongside the monetary process, we also have the Treasury Counsel pathway, which we introduced a couple of years ago in order to broaden the diversity of the room. So one part of this process is around recruiting monitorees. The other part of the process is to recruit directly into the senior Treasury Counsel cadre, which is something that has happened over the last 20 years since I was last in the public sector. I think it's a really good thing to do, to provide people with the opportunity when they've become quite senior to take up these appointments in the Treasury Counsel panel. So I think that's probably all I need to say. I mean, as I've mentioned, instructions can come from outside London, but from within London, instructions come from CPS Central Casework, from the homicide team in London, as we've heard. And I suppose the final thing to say is that you do set the standard for prosecution advocacy. I mean, you really are the brightest and the best. it's a considerable feather in your cap if you do become Treasury Counsel, and it leads to other things once you eventually leave the room. So I think that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to stay for the remainder of this session because I take a particular personal interest in recruitment to the panel, but also how the panel is doing. And I'm quite interested to hear what's being said about it, actually. So I'm going to stay, but I'm going to stop talking and hand over to you, Jazzy, to introduce the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Director. Thank you. That's really kind of helpful. Just before I do, I've just got a few words I'm going to kind of just mention around the room before we get into some of the kind of detail, just around public confidence and building on what the Director was saying and around diversity as well. But you mentioned the room, Director, and prior to the pandemic, this we're holding online would have been held at the Old Bailey, and we probably would have been possibly kind of sitting in the room or actually kind of visiting the room. And if it was held there in person, we would have had a much smaller group of London-based advocates probably, and that's part of the kind of challenge that we have. But because now we're used to conducting business in this way, and in fact it does help enormously. It means that holding this event in this format allows us to talk to advocates based all around the country, and that's really important because we recognise, as you say, Director, that talent is not confined just to London and the London Chambers, and there are many gifted advocates and potential Treasury Counsel of the future operating in all court centres. And just a few words on diversity. The CPS have worked really hard to understand the value and importance of having a fair, diverse and inclusive criminal justice system. It's absolutely fundamental to delivering fair prosecutions, achieving equitable employment practice and securing very much that public confidence. And that's why all of us need to take a very active role in creating a more inclusive environment and understanding what that actually means. And where talent is recognised and where advocates from all different backgrounds can thrive. I've been in the criminal justice system for 34 years now. I've seen the highs and the lows. I've seen how difficult it can be. I came from the north. I remember being told as a young barrister to change my accent because my Yorkshire accent wasn't very friendly to the bar at the time. I've had to drive through that, and I'm afraid there are still many kind of challenges which still exist for people of my colour, people of my gender as well. So look, we have made a lot of progress and we've made major progress, but we're committed to ensuring that all parts of our workforce are diverse and inclusive. And we recognise that, however, we need to go a lot further than that. So that's why it's really of how we work with the bar and those who prosecute on our behalf, and that includes the Treasury Counsel team. So if we are bringing about positive and lasting change, we've got to do that with all of our advocates, both internally and externally. And where we've got a team of specialist advocates like Treasury Counsel, they're role models. And as the Director said, prosecute some of the most serious and complex cases across England and Wales. And it's really important that we have that geographical spread as well. And currently we've got Treasury Counsel instructed in trials in Newcastle, Manchester, Preston, Carlisle, Norwich, Maidstone and Chelmsford. So look, it's not all London centric and London focused. And also with these high profile cases, what comes with that is that it opens up that window to the CPS. And because it opens up that window to the CPS, we've got to ensure that those who prosecute on our behalf are representative of the communities they serve, and the work is also geographically spread too. So this event and the wider work, such as the Treasury Counsel pathway, is founded on a genuine and joint commitment from the CPS, from the Attorney General's Office and the Treasury Counsel team as well, to identify and support the brightest and the best advocates so that they can seize upon those opportunities and they can reach their full potential regardless of their background. And public confidence is essential, and it's really important at this time when there is so much going on in the criminal justice system that we've got to do everything we can do to secure that public confidence. And this is part of it. And as I said, it's important that those communities we serve see themselves reflected in those who prosecute. And whether that's prosecuting a criminal damage in the magistrates' courts, or if it's a murder at the Bailey, we exist to serve society, and we must therefore be representative of it. Never forget that. So important. And when a very good friend of mine, Mrs. Justice Chima Grubb, spoke at this event a couple of years ago about the importance of diversity within the criminal law profession, she said that success should be multicoloured, gender rich, class blind, and irrespective of age. She always described her years in the room as first junior and then senior Treasury Counsel as the best years of her life. We know aspiring to become Treasury Counsel is not for everyone, but for those who are appointed, it is recognition that you've reached a pinnacle and possess that sharp intellect, first-class advocacy skills, and absolute integrity, and also an appetite for hard work. But also that you're willing to be part of a team, supporting each other, learning from each other, and demonstrating excellence in everything you do. So one thing I do want to say is don't undersell yourselves. Some of you may not have that problem, of course, but those of you who think it might not be for you, just think again. And do not undervalue the skills that you have. Yes, standards expected are high, and rightly so, and everyone is different. And there's not a standard idea of what Treasury Counsel should look like, sound like, or where they should come from. The room is open and it's flexible enough to embrace you. So really have the confidence to think about applying. And if you do want to have a chat before applying, then do get in touch. I'm quite happy to speak to any of you about applying and what you think it may mean for you. So with that, I'm going to hand over to someone who's very experienced, who's our current first senior Treasury Counsel, Oliver Glasgow KC, who's going to give you an overview of the role, the assessment and the interview process. So over to you, Ollie.
Thanks so much, Jazzy, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Can I start by telling you a little bit about the role of Treasury Counsel? Some of you may know something of it, some of you may know nothing of it. But our role is to provide independent advice to the Attorney General and to the Solicitor General, to the DPP, to the CPS, and to other prosecuting authorities and government departments. As the Director has said, we prosecute some of the most serious, the most complicated, and the highest profile work that there is. But can I echo what Jazzy has said in dispelling two illusions straight away? There is a perception that we only prosecute homicide and terrorism work, and that we only work in London. Neither of those perceptions are correct. Whilst it's true that homicide and terrorism makes up a large part of the work that we do, we in fact work in all areas of crime and quasi-crime. We are regularly instructed by the appeals unit, by the Serious Fraud Office, by the CPS fraud team, by HMRC, by the Health and Safety Executive, and by regulatory enforcement bodies such as Ofsted and CQC. But please don't let the nature of that wide expanse of our work put you off in applying, because it's neither a requirement nor an expectation that you will have worked in any of these areas before. We are not looking for any particular experience. We are looking for potential and for the sight of excellence. We're looking for individuals who have the potential to excel in written and oral advocacy, and not candidates who've already underdone the sort of work that we already undertake. But just as a lack of precise TC style experience shouldn't be a bar to any applicant, please do not be put off by the fact that people tend to think of the focus of our work as being London based, often either at the Central Criminal Court or at the Royal Courts of Justice. Today we work in courts up and down the country, and we're looking for applicants who are willing to do the same. Indeed, in recent years, some of the most successful Treasury Counsel members have come from outside of London, and every one of us has undertaken and undertakes work in various different places. As Jazzy's just mentioned, as at today, we have Treasury Counsel instructed in cases as far and wide as Norwich and Newcastle, Maidstone and Manchester, and Chelmsford and Carlisle. We are presently diversifying not only the nature of the work that we do, but where we do it. And the idea in so doing is to make our role more attractive to a far greater number of people than otherwise might have been the case. Ultimately, we are looking for the best possible candidates. School, university, degree matters not. Where you come from, where you practice, the work that you do is utterly irrelevant. You don't need even to be a prosecutor to consider applying to us. What we want are excellent analytical and tactical skills. We want first-class legal knowledge. We want sound and excellent judgment, and we want strong advocacy skills. And those don't come from a particular individual or from a particular type of person or indeed from a particular location. They come from somebody who has gained the necessary experience and who has that talent and is willing to work hard. And that is who we are looking for. We're not looking for the finished article by any stretch of the imagination. We're looking for someone who that we can help become the finished article. We want talent, commitment, and a willingness to learn. That is what being monitored is all about, and that indeed is what being Treasury Counsel is all about. The director has said the room, which is the shared office space in which most of us work, isn't just a centre for excellence, it's a teaching centre at its heart. None of us, and certainly not me, will ever have the answer to anything that a case may throw at you. But what you can guarantee when working within the Treasury Counsel team is that someone will have come across a similar situation before, and we all work together to help each other and to educate each other. And that's what makes the room such an exciting place to work and such an exciting place to be. Whether or not ultimately you would be successful at the end of any monitoring period, what I could guarantee anyone who becomes a monitoree is this: you will ultimately be a better barrister, and that has to be something that everyone wants to aim for. Obviously, the beginning process is to apply to be monitored. Can I give you something of an idea of what that entails? And I'll deal both with the written and the interview process, as well as with the monitoring period. And then I'll turn to give some idea to those who might be interested in applying for the open competition to become one of the existing senior Treasury Counsel team. To start with, for those who are interested in joining us as monitorees, the recruitment process will go live on the 11th of December. You will have until the 12th of January to complete the written application form, which will enable you to provide evidence-based examples of your skill and knowledge. And can I emphasize what I've just said? Evidence-based examples. There is no point in telling us how brilliant you are, which of course you will be, unless you can establish how it is that you make such a claim. So what we're looking for is for you to provide concrete evidence of your skills and your knowledge that would be relevant to joining the Treasury Counsel team. We're looking for a capacity to manage competing and demanding deadlines. We're looking for experience in dealing with a variety of large and complex cases. We're looking for the ability to provide first-class legal, procedural, and evidential advice. We're looking for strong advocacy skills. And above all, we're looking for an understanding of the impacts of criminal justice in a diverse society. In addition, you'll need to provide written details of some of the more significant cases that you've done in the last 2 years. That doesn't mean a trawl through your diary to give us every single one of the cases you've been in. 5 or 6 examples would suffice, but with a short explanation of why those cases are significant, the role in which you performed in them and why it's relevant for us to consider those cases, together with the details of the judge in front of whom you appeared. You'll also need to supply 2 examples of recent written work. We'll need preferably an opinion and a skeleton argument. Of course, they'll need to be suitably anonymized, but can I encourage you to think of pieces of work which give a demonstration of your ability to get to the heart of an issue quickly and succinctly, and to provide balanced and sensible advice to whoever is to receive that piece of work. We'll also want you to provide us with 2 referees. It doesn't matter who they are, but it would be sensible if you could find people who are able to speak to your advocacy or to speak to your written work. It doesn't need to be your head of chambers. It's probably best if it's not your best friend, but it would help if it's someone that you think is able to provide a sensible, a balanced and an accurate reference on your behalf. Thereafter, once we have all that written material, so your application, your list of cases, and your written work, together with the referees that we'll obtain references from, you'll then be assessed by a diverse panel, including representatives from the Crown Prosecution Service, the Attorney General's Office, the Treasury Counsel team, together with an independent member as well. Some of you will then be chosen for interview, and those interviews are likely to take place in February of next year. We don't have a set number of people that we interview, just as we don't have a set number of people we are looking to appoint as monitorees. We're looking to find the best of the best. If that is 5, 10, 15, or 20, the number does not matter. What matters is finding the right people who have the ability to excel. The interview process itself, as I said, which is likely to take place in February next year, will comprise 2 parts. It'll give you the opportunity to demonstrate your analytical, your legal, and your advocacy skills. The first part of the interview is a legal problem which is provided to you in advance and effectively forms the first half of the interview, comprising about 20 minutes or so. You'll be given a short written problem. The idea is not necessarily to come up with the right answer, because there invariably isn't one. The idea is to avoid the wrong answer. And what we'll be looking to do during the course of the interview is to explore that legal problem with you, to change the parameters of the legal problem to force you to think on your feet whilst you're in the interview, and to see how you develop, how you respond, and how quickly you can grapple with the changing scenario as it unfolds. As I've said, the idea is not simply to have a right answer, so please don't think that in preparation for the interview, you need to read Blackstone's or Archbold. The answer will not be in there. There won't be a particular case or a particular statute which will find you the answer to the problem. The problem is designed to test your approach, your judgment, your tactics, and above all, your integrity and fairness. And we'll do that during the course of about 20 minutes or so. At the end of the first half of the interview, we'll then move to the core skills element. And what you'll be tested there are the abilities that you'll need to have in your armory if you are to become one of the Treasury Counsel team. And you'll begin again asked to be providing concrete evidence-based examples of the abilities that we are looking for. And for example, we'll be looking for abilities in communication and influencing. For example, you'll be asked to give an example of when you gave advice that wasn't well received and how you then dealt with that problem as it unfolded with your client, be it their professional or lay client. You might be asked about making effective decisions, for example, describing to us a situation where something has gone wrong and how you've handled it and what you've learned from that situation. But the idea is to give you an opportunity during that 20 minutes or so to provide us with concrete examples above and beyond your form of the skills that you have that will assist you in your path through being monitored and hopefully on to being Treasury Counsel. And then at the end of that rather lengthy process, we then consider whether or not any of those individuals are suitable to be monitored. We're likely to make the announcements for that in March of next year, with a view to appointing all monitorees as from the beginning of April. What you'll then begin after that, for those who are successful, will be a process of about 3 years, beginning on the 1st of April. And during the course of those 3 years, you will be briefed on a number of cases by the specialist CPS teams and led by existing members of the Treasury Counsel room. There are no set number of cases that you will be instructed on, but the average is likely to be around about 4 each year. And indeed, if you find that you're instructed in other serious CPS cases which haven't come to you through the monitoring process, you can ask to have them included as well as part of the review. As the review of your performance in monitored cases, feedback will be sought from the judge in front of whom you appeared, from your leader or your junior, whichever is appropriate, as well as also possibly from opponents, but above all from the lawyer who has instructed you. Each of those individuals will be provided with a form to review your written work, your oral advocacy, and overall your approach to the case, your integrity and your fairness. And it goes without saying that there is some significance attached to that when it comes to our review of your performance at the end of the 3 years. Once you've got to the end of the 3 years, all of that written feedback will be anonymised and then collated into numbered packs. That is then reviewed by the Treasury Council Appointments Committee with a view to identifying the best of the monitored candidates. And can I emphasise again, we are not looking for a set number of monitorees, and we are not looking for a set number of junior Treasury Counsel. We are simply looking for the best of the best. And it doesn't matter how many individuals make that grade, because if there are 10 of you, then we're in luck and we have 10 monitorees and possibly 10 more juniors. If there's only 2, then it will only be 2 at the end of the day. As to the applications for Senior Treasury Counsel, again, an open competition, which will go live on the 11th of December. The application process is much the same as for monitorees, it's just harder. The application form is the same. It will be invited to test your skills, and you'll be invited to give concrete evidence-based examples of all the relevant targets you'll need to hit. Perhaps the significant difference when you come to apply to be senior rather than a monitoree is we'll be looking at your ability to be a leader, to manage a team, sometimes a multidisciplinary team, and to deal with it as a leader from the start. And that is a particular skill that is necessary for anyone that wants to become Senior Treasury Counsel. But beyond that, we'll be looking for concrete examples of your written and oral advocacy and your ability to deal with all the difficulties that are likely to come in your way. You'll also be invited to provide 2 pieces of written work from the last 12 months, again, preferably suitably anonymised, and also skeletons and opinions. And then we'll be looking to go through the same interview procedure in due course next year. The interview procedure will be harder than that for monitorees, as you would expect, but it will contain the same format. Initially, there'll be half of the interview devoted to a legal problem that will be set for you, and you'll be given an opportunity to review it. And then the second half will be an opportunity for us to ask you questions about the relevant key and core skills that are required of anyone wanting to be Senior Treasury Counsel. And again, we're looking to have those interviews in February of next year, with appointments beginning as from the 1st of April. Now, looking ahead for all of you who have joined us this evening, some of you may not yet be ready to apply either to be senior or to be a monitoree at this time. Some of you may be planning your career path very early, in which case, well done to you. So you are aware of how the monitoring and the Treasury Counsel process will work going forwards. The monitoring process will be open every 3 years. The idea in making it 3 years is to ensure that everyone will have a proper opportunity to showcase their ability whilst being monitored. And that's important because it doesn't matter how far outside London you might live and work. It will give you the chance over 3 years to join us on occasion in London, but also to showcase your ability at courts outside of London, and for us to review that progress. In order to prepare people for future applications, as Jazzy has already said, and I've said on a number of occasions, you are welcome to make contact with the Treasury Counsel team. There is a CPS email address through which you can contact us, and you're welcome to contact me direct, either via that email address or via my CPS email address, which will come direct to me, and I will do my best, as I know Jazzy will, to answer any questions as best as we can and in complete confidence. That is a genuine offer from both of us, and I would encourage anyone that wants to reach out in due course to speak to either one or both of us about the various application procedures that are about to go live on the 11th of December. For those who are at a much earlier stage in their career and who are as yet undecided whether they want to apply to be monitored to be Treasury Counsel, can I pick up on what's been mentioned both by the director and by Jazzy, and that is the Treasury Counsel Pathway Scheme. Again, there will be applications opening for that. They will be early in next year. It is a 12-month plan that is run by the existing members of the Treasury Counsel team in conjunction with the Attorney General's Office and the Crown Prosecution Service. It is designed to give those who would otherwise not have thought of applying to join us an opportunity to see how we work, to come and work with us, to experience life in the room, and most importantly, to have an opportunity to meet with the various stakeholders who have such a keen interest in the room. And by that, I mean an opportunity for anyone who is on the pathway to meet with members of the Old Bailey judicial team, to speak with people at the Court of Appeal Criminal Division, and to meet with people from CPS Homicide, from the Fraud Division, from the Appeals Unit, and from Counter-Terrorism. It is a fantastic opportunity for anyone who has not thought of it before to see what we do, how we do it, and why we are valued in what we do. We're currently midway through the second cohort of pathway candidates, and I'm proud to say that we have now had someone from every single circuit in the country who has come to join us and to spend time with us. Each of those who has taken part has given us feedback to suggest that they found the experience valuable. And I know that those members of the room who have helped to look after them have themselves found it valuable. In terms of the makeup of the room, for you to get a better idea of who we are, as has already been explained, we are presently split between 9 juniors and 7 seniors. And out of that cohort, 7 of us are female. But we are determined, and I am determined, to ensure that we properly represent the wider society that we serve. And that can only be achieved if we secure interest and applications from all areas and from all backgrounds. That is why we have set up the Pathway programme. That is why we are determined to ensure that everyone understands the open competition, both for monitorees and for seniors. And that is why Jazzy and I have made the offer that anyone that wants to can approach us privately and confidentially to ask us about how to make an application, perhaps when to make an application, and how to ensure that they put their application in the best possible light. I can assure you that Treasury Counsel's room is a fantastic place to work. It has been a real privilege for me for the last 15 years to be a member of the room, and it's been a real privilege for me for the last 2.5 years to lead the room. I would encourage anyone who has an interest in the sort of work that we do to give very serious consideration to applying to join us, either on the pathway or as a monitoree or as a senior. I don't think anyone would regret taking the opportunity to apply and hoping that they might have that chance to demonstrate that they have exactly what we are looking for, no matter who they are or where they come from. So please give very serious consideration to making those applications. Very serious consideration to taking us up on the offer of advice, and I look forward to meeting as many of you as possible in the weeks, months, and possibly years to come. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. That was really comprehensive, Ollie. And if we don't get any applications after that, thank you for that insight. And I think what we're really saying here, this is a unique opportunity, absolutely unique. It doesn't kind of exist anywhere else. And it's a very kind of supportive environment as well. And it also, with everything that Ollie said, allows you an opportunity to come and have a taste of it as well, and come and experience what it's really like. Now, I can't see anything in the chat, so let me just remind you, if there are any questions, do put them in the chat. And we'll kind of address those, but we'll open it up to the kind of floor a little bit later as well. Now, even though we have said to you, there are many different specialist teams that, and Ollie's kind of mentioned them, that do brief the room. Lisa's from one of those teams, and it's the homicide team that she's going to talk about a little bit more. We could have got others here, but we've only got an hour for this kind of session. But the homicide team probably provides the majority of the work into that room, and that's why Lisa's here. So Lisa, Deputy Chief Crown Prosecutor, London North, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jazzy. And as you've said, I have the privilege, and I would call it a privilege, to oversee the homicide unit in London North. I thought it'd be useful for everyone on the call for me to just give you a bit of an overview about the unit in terms of the lawyers we have and the paralegal officers on the team, as well as the range of work that we cover and the relationship that we have with the room. So starting firstly with the team, as Jazzy has mentioned, it's a pan-London unit. And in fact, it might surprise you to learn that it is the only homicide unit across the organisation. Of course, all the other areas, CPS areas, will have homicides. Of course they will. But in London, we've taken the considered view to have a dedicated homicide unit, so that we've got a small cadre of lawyers, specialist lawyers, who are dealing with these cases to make sure that they're devoting adequate time to these cases, as well as, very importantly, meeting the commitments under the bereaved family scheme that we have as well. So currently in our unit, we have approximately 16 lawyers, all senior Crown prosecutors. And actually, just picking up on the point around diversity, we've taken the decision in the unit as well to make sure that we are bringing in lawyers from across the organisation. So whilst we've got a steady number of London-based lawyers in the unit, we also encourage, through a programme of secondments, to attract a number of specialist prosecutors who will come in from different geographical areas. So we've currently got lawyers on our unit who used to be based in Thames and Chiltern, for example, in the southeast area, in Sussex. And we do that so that we're bringing in experience and good practice from other areas of the organisation. So as I say, we've currently got 16 lawyers. We also operate a very successful bar secondee programme as well, where we look to bring in bar secondee, so barristers who will come in and work on our unit as specialist Crown prosecutors, seconded to the unit for limited periods of time. And those secondments have run up from 12 months to 24 months. And in fact, we've currently got a barrister with us, who I think is on the call actually, Amanda Hamilton, who joined us last Monday. So again, we're always looking to bring in experience from across the organisation and from the bar as well. So our lawyers work very closely with the Metropolitan Police MIT teams and also with instructed counsel, as you would imagine, on all of their cases. We also have a number of paralegal officers who work supporting our lawyers very closely, as well as other operational staff based at the Old Bailey with our Crown Court manager there, PAs across the courts. In terms of the work that we do on the unit, as the name might suggest, it's all things homicide. That includes, which does surprise some people, all the fatal road traffic collisions in London, as well as a range of other cases ranging from, for example, cold case investigations, non-accidental injury infant cases, domestic violence, through to multi-defendant joint enterprise gang cases. So there's a huge range of work in and amongst all of the work that we do on the unit. And currently on the unit, we've got approximately 360 live cases. That number of cases is made up of both pre-charge cases, so cases that are sitting with us from the police awaiting advice, and they generally will be the cold case investigations, some of the manslaughter cases that we get, as well as the infant deaths I mentioned, and the road traffic cases are quite often pre-charge cases. On the other side, we will have the post-charge work, which is about 2/3 of the current caseload. We do have in the homicide unit a very high proportion of our cases that are charged by the police on the threshold test at a very early stage in the investigation, which means uniquely for us that our lawyers are always dealing with a good number of cases where the investigation is incomplete, the evidence is emerging, we've got CTLs running, and so we need to get that case prepared in collaboration with our police teams and counsel within a very short period of time. So it can be quite high pressured in terms of making sure we're trial ready on time, particularly when we're dealing with some of the bigger cases where the evidence is voluminous. And I'm thinking to some of our sort of multi-handed gang cases, which we have a good number of. So as I've said, about a third of our cases are in custody. We've got a number of joint enterprise cases on our unit, and actually our unit has featured very heavily in a piece of work the organisation has done very recently in looking at our joint enterprise cases and disproportionality around some of that in our charging decisions. And we currently have about 30 cases that are flagged as gang cases. That doesn't necessarily mean that some of the defendants we've charged are not in gangs. It just means that those cases that have been identified as gang cases due to perhaps a motive for the killing or the homicide. So that's really just to give everyone an overview of the type of work we do and the makeup of our team here, which is based in Petit, France. One thing I will say about working together, we enjoy a really close working relationship, as you will imagine, with the MIT teams. They are very vested in their cases, obviously, but which is great for us. So we work really closely with our police colleagues in terms of building those cases, which I've mentioned, those that are charged at a very early stage, to make sure we can get them trial ready on time at court. We also work very collaboratively with TCs in the room, and because of the nature of our work, it's not unusual to have not just one but 2 or 3 case conferences as the case progresses through the courts, as well as, importantly, TCs being available and meeting with bereaved family members on many of our cases as well. So our experience is the room provides us with that really close working relationship for our lawyers. They're always also on hand for any sort of ad hoc advice and queries that I know our lawyers will have. And it really is quite unique, I think, in terms of what I've seen in London and the way in which we work together with our colleagues in the room. So that's really all I wanted to say. I think there was a question that arose whilst I was speaking. I don't know if that's one for me.
Yes, probably. Gemma's asking about the delays due to kind of COVID and the bar strike action and the time frame for being able to provide.
Oh, I think that's part of the application process, Jazzy. I think that probably relates to.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just reading that. Ollie, do you want to kind of pick up on that? I think we're going to have an open kind of mind in relation to that because of all the kind of questions that the reasons that we've kind of explained there. Of course, because we know that many cases were delayed due to bar strike action and also COVID.
Yeah, can I make it clear that whilst when it comes to being monitored in particular, we're looking for you to provide pieces of work that are relevant from the last 2 years. If you need to go earlier than that, then that's perfectly understandable. No one's going to prevent you from identifying a case that's 4 years old if it's particularly relevant, because you want to dip back into the history of your practice rather than to deal with something more modern, because as a result of the COVID and the bar strike and the fact that cases aren't getting off the ground, you don't have anything particularly current to cite. So please don't think that because there is a gap in your diary brought on by the pandemic, by the bar strike, or by the current difficulty in getting cases off the ground, that will be in any way a bar to you making an application. Of course, we will recognise that not everyone will necessarily have cases that are relevant from the last 12 months, and you may need to go a bit further back in the calendar. That won't be a problem.
Yeah, just explain it in the application and then it's understood. Because there are many kind of, there are example or other leave for whatever kind of reason for family commitments, and there may be a kind of gap there, so that's going to be kind of understood and accepted. You may just want to kind of explain it very kind of briefly. But Lisa, thank you for that explanation of the work of the homicide team. I must say, I used to run the homicide team for 3 years between 2004 and 2007. I headed up that team. It was called the Old Bailey team then, and out of all of the jobs I've done, director, it was probably the most exciting job I've held in CPS. I've done a lot of jobs, but it was the most exciting because of the kind of high profile nature of the cases, and you see the kind of reports and the kind of press the other day, which weren't always kind of accurate or kind of fair, but absolutely kind of fascinating work, and some cases we've dealt with there, which we're still talking about now, such as some of the honour killing cases, for example, as well, of which are really kind of important with that kind of specialist interest that's required. So that kind of deals with all of the kind of presentations that we wanted to give you, and hopefully that's given you a much more rounded kind of view and opened up some of the understanding of the room. It's a very onerous term, isn't it? And very kind of sounds like a dark kind of place. The room. Perhaps, Solly, we need to kind of change that, because there's more than one room now, isn't there? There are kind of two rooms or a suite of rooms.
We've got a couple of cubby holes that people are allowed into.
Yeah. I can't see that there are anything else in the chat. I don't know if anybody wanted to come on and raise a hand or ask any kind of questions, but it gives you a good understanding, and we are going to share some of the FAQs with you, which also going to cover some of the points as well, and provide the application forms and other kind of details and guidance, particularly for you as well. So a reminder, applications are going to open on the 11th of December. You want to probably start thinking about that now, because I know this traverses the festive period as well, because the date, as Ollie has already told you, closes on the 12th of January. Just really take some time about those applications, because we undertake a lot of the work when it comes to applications for the advocacy panel. And I think in the kind of busy world, some of the applicants don't always address some of the criteria, and there's a lot of guidance there. Do take your time, get it ready in advance, and as Ollie has said, we're able to kind of assist you and provide some support and guidance. So, Michael, have we covered everything that we needed to cover? By the sounds of things, we probably have, because there aren't any questions, or everybody's very keen to kind of finish the day and start their evening.
Yeah, I think everything's been covered. It was very comprehensive. So yeah, I don't think there's anything further from me. Thank
you. So can I thank the director, can I thank Ollie and Lisa, and also Michael, you and your team, for putting this together. I think it's been really thorough and well kind of prepared. And again, anybody wants to see the recording, it's on our CPS website, but do spread the word, please, as well. And those of you who are from different parts of the country, please do speak to your colleagues, because we know there's a lot of interest and you might be able to smash some of those myths as well. Thank you for giving up your time this evening. Really good to see so many on the call, and have a good evening, and we'll close the meeting. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.